Aloha nui kākou o wau nei no o ikaakamai. Welcome to Makahiʻo Mele, our first edition, and we are stoked to have Kuʻulei of Kuʻulei Music here to talk about our new mele, Aloha ʻāina meds. Aloha.
Yeah, aloha ʻāina meds. Aloha ʻoe ikaakamai hoi.
Hi. So yeah, we got a mele coming out. It'll be released on February 21st, 2021, as the Atikala was released in 2021, 1893. So it's kind of significant that we had it on this day with the mana'o to bring these vibes to life. And yeah, we'll talk more about this, the second half of the mele. And our first half of the mele is Ku Ha'aheo. And the lahu is definitely kama'aina to that.
Yeah, fully. I super mahalo the mana of that oli and that pule as it's part of the medley. I think you said 2021, 1893, but I think you meant 221, 1893.
Kololei,
So I think it's
yeah.
like Pepe Lua's. So the mana'o nui of the release date being the 21st is that like part of the medley includes the atikala, like Ikaka said, that like iho'opuka ia so February 21st, 1893, the article came out, and then exactly 127 years later, like exactly to the day, it's like coming out to our ears. So at first it came out to our maka, and now ma'ane ino kako mekalo noa kapepe yao. So we're here with the senses of the ears. But yes, I'm super mahalo the opportunity to come here and talk Stars Achieve.
All right, mahalo nui. Yeah, so our series is broken into 4 parts. The first part will be ka'eli, where we kind of do an explanation of where the hu'olelo, where their lyrics came from, where the leo came from, and how was the na'o, how were we so moved to make this mele. So we can start with that. E Ku'ulei, where did these lyrics come from?
Okay, so like I mentioned, Kuha'aheo came from Kumuhina. That was a super instrumental pule and oli and mele ho'i in the different movements that have been around Hawaii, ʻāina, all across the ʻāina. The second mele was this kind of like this piece I wrote based on Kuha'aheo. That's the Ho'ohoku Kalani, Descendants of the Stars, Mama Kakawa part. So that was like me. And then the third part of the mele where it talks about where it starts with Ea Kalono Ua Hikimai, that's the beginning of the Mele no Kapuni Lile Lile, which came from an 1893 article. So that's the one that came out on February 21st, 1893 in the Kaleo Kalahui newspaper. It was like 1 month after the illegal occupation of Hawaii began, and it was 1 month after the deposition of the queen. So there was all kind of aloha ʻāinas that were submitting their mele aloha ʻāina or patriotic songs to the newspapers, and this was one of them. Like the story actually is that I used to like this kane, and I was stalking his Facebook, and he shared this mele that was mele no kapuni lile lile, and I was like, oh, like right there, pa kana'o, because already pa ia kana'o, because I like the guy, but then it was like more pa kana'o because of because of the koi of the mele. So like I was in bed scrolling, and then like as soon as I read the lyrics, there was like this i'ini to look for my ukulele. And when I found my ukulele, it was my tutu's ukulele, I started playing, and it was like this ea that was like very Hawaii. And then from that ea, well, ho'orege ia, and it kind of evolved into the ea that we do in this song. So that's where that mele came from. There's also the hui of it, which is ku'e, ahiki ke aloha ʻāina hopeloa, which comes from James Kaulia and his mana'o that until the very last aloha ʻāina, there's no last, there's never going to be a last aloha. we're going to be out here forever. So anyway, that all of those, there's all the different portions of the song that are super ko'i, and like I think maybe later in the series we dive a little deeper, but for now, that's kind of where all that comes from.
Kuʻulei, mahalo nui. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think a lot of
mahalo.
people are stoked definitely on the beginning, hearing that kuha'aheo, and like you said, a very instrumental mele la hui. It started off as a pule, and now it's a mele la hui that our whole la hui knows. So it's kind of a somewhat of a hook in that way, and then we have
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
minor aspect. Yeah, super beautiful. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo ya oi. Mahalo ya oi kahana nui. Yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely know that you're not always moved in all
Anytime.
facets. Yeah, many times. All right. Okay. So our next segment is Kaho'a Nalo. Yeah. And this is pretty much about the producing, the mixing, the master, and the distributing of the mele. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea about any of that. So really mahalo ya oi that you're able to be present to do all those kind of works in the production of this mele. I really have no maka when it comes to any of that. So like how about you talk a little bit about about the
Sure.
production?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a recent producer that has been coming out, and we're on. I think this is Mele Ehiku since last July. So kind of just learning the production process and the different sonic attributes of the mele that we need to kind of raise so that the listener is entranced in a way. And I did draw from when we played this live. I think we played this live at a county fair a few years ago.
Yeah, county fair things. Yeah.
County fair,
Yeah.
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 And I definitely remember in the mele that we had this like super rootsy reggae vibe, and kind of touching on like a kaulana napua aspect and how people kind of redo that. But I think that kuha'aheo was a definite, an important part of it. And then segueing into this next part of the mele for puni lile lile, we kind of wanted to capture those attributes of the kala. And so
Yeah.
we have a few kind of samples just thrown in, audio samples of just kala and kind of getting you into that vibe when you're singing about it. And another sample I wanted to talk about was
Oh, you mean like in the actual song?
in the actual song. Yeah.
Like in the background music part. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah.
In fact, we'll play that right now. Yep, it sounded like coins dropping. Yeah, it was
Wait, I
around
never
there.
hear nothing. Wait, did you share something? Because I never hear nothing.
It'll be there. It'll be there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Check your chat box. Check your chat. All right. So another sample I thought was kind of cool was it was like a Mauna sample, and it was actually like a personal video I shot on my Instagram, and I posted it when all the wahine were standing in line on the Mauna at Pu'uhuluhulu on Keala Kupuna. And I literally just took that audio. So everybody out there, save your stories, because those are important,
Yeah.
Parts of our history, both in your history to your ʻohana and personally, and it could be, part of a greater history one day too. So yeah, so I went back in the archives and I found that sample, and I thought like all the poos blowing and just capturing the audible sonic sample of that day. That was an important part of going into this process. And because we have that power to just do that in our productions, we're trying that now. So mahalo
Is
nui.
that the beginning? Is it the beginning part you're talking about?
Yeah, so that's the very beginning of the mele, and then it's played through every chorus of kuha'aheo. Yeah.
I think I noticed in the beginning too, there's like probably the pule that's going on in the background is like malana maika'u, because I think like there's some action of just like super quick clip of that, and I really mahalo that when I heard that, because Havani and I are super close, and I know that her and Adipua have a lot to do with that mele. I think they're the ones that hakuia So it was like a super beautiful, even though you never know, it was like this super beautiful tip of the hat kind things to my tita. And I just really mahalo you for bringing her and her ohana into our spaces. That's pretty nuts.
Oh,
Yeah,
mahalo, Tisa. Yeah, and
yeah, mahalo, mahalo.
yeah, and now it's gonna be in everybody's ears for all of Aloha
Yay!
ʻāina history.
Yeah, it's part of the Aloha ʻāina meds now. Like, wow, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So now we go into our next section, Kohu'e. Yeah. And so it's here that we will examine the lyrics.
Just really quickly before we get to the Punilila Lila, because I think I'm most excited about the Punilila Lila part. That's the part that was like 127 years. Like it's like rebirth. It's a rebirth of that mele. And so the person who hakud that mele, according to the Atikala, is Maluihi Kolohe Kahuanene Akpoyavalani. I just wanted to honor that Inoa. I don't know, it might be a pen name, and I'm always looking for mo'opuna of anybody who would know that Inoa. But before we get into that part of the medley, yeah, so there's Kuha'a Hill. I was thinking about how ko'i, like how super important that pule is. And I call it a pule because it's like the intentions of like prayerful intentions, whether it's sung or spoken. Like that's why it's a pule to me. But um I think about how many people sing that without really knowing what it really means. So I tried to portray my own verse of that hui, that because the kuha'aheo part is just the chorus, of that mele. Um, so my lyrics are kuha'aheo, e ku'u Hawaii, stand up, stand proud of all that you are, fearless warriors equipped with knowledge, ho'ohoku kalani, descendants of the stars. Like kuha'aheo, all those things that I just said is what kuha'aheo means to me. It translates to just stand proud, but it's deeper than that. It goes into understanding that we come from, like we descend from akua. Like that's the mana onui. Ho'ohoku kalani, descendants of the stars. Ho'ohoku kalani is a piece of akua without going too deep into the religions of it. But mama kakawa o ku'u'aina. What's your mana on the word mama kakawa? Like, what does it mean? Just kind of like briefly.
Like a battalion of some sort. Makoko to go into koa, makoko to fight for what they need to.
Yeah, kako piha. So fearless warriors equipped with knowledge. Like mama kakawa o ku'u'aina, like that's what that is. We're fearless warriors, and today our war looks like having a good, like the discipline of our war involves having a good grip on our mind. And so fearless warriors equipped with knowledge involves being really aware and maka'ala and educated, not just institutionally, but generally on all of the things that are happening with our lahui kanaka these days, with our ʻāina these days, with our water sources these days, with our mauna these days, with our kai these days. So that's what makes us warriors. It is that dedication and that fierce equipment to our ʻāina, which is our ʻāina. Fierce commitment to our ʻāina. Mama kakawa o ku'u'aina, my mama ʻāina, I'll always defend. Face against the concrete, pressure till I can't breathe. Sacrifice my life because this ʻāina is all I am. Those are the lyrics. Face against the concrete is a very real thing. I think some people might know that I was arrested in the Kahuku windmill Kalailoa stance, and that was a very serious thing. Like my face was pressed against the ground, but it was a small price to pay for the mana of Aloha ʻāina. Like it was super small. But anyway, that's the mana onui of the beginning song. And then we go into Mele no Kapuni Lile Lile. Or there's this ku'e ahiki ke Aloha ʻāina hopeloa. We talked about that a little bit more, a little bit in the beginning. Did you have particular lines of Mele no Kapuni Lile Lile that you kind of wanted to look into, or were we gonna kind of like go through the like line by line kind?
I'm down to go line by line.
Yeah, me too. Super,
Yeah.
super. I just wanted to say really quickly that that line, ahiki ke aloha ʻāina hopeloa, that comes from this gathering. So James Kaulia was the president of the Aha Hui Aloha ʻāina. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the kind of like the Luna that presided over a lot of things that were related to Hawaii politics in the 1800s and 1800s. And he got together with a group of people, and he was saying that like the decision of what happens to our land should lie in the hands of the people whose land it is. All that in all of the things that I believe to be true and real, we should never, ever, ever agree to the coming together of Hawaii land and politics with that of America. We're separate. We're not, we should never, ever agree to the kind of like to the assimilation of Hawaii and America until the very last Aloha ʻāina, until the very last Hawaiian patriot, but also until the very last Kanaka who loves their land. And as Kanaka who love our land, we teach our children to love their land and their children to love theirs. So essentially there is no end. So what we're saying, ku'e, ahiki ke aloha ʻāina hopeloa, is a very literal thing that means to remember that being Hawaiian does not mean, is not the same as being American. Like, it's not the same. And we're going to teach our children that Hawaii's are very special and very different from American culture until forever and ever and ever. We would never ever forget that being Hawaiian is not the same thing as being American. That's my mana'o on that that phrase that is ahiki ke aloha ʻāina hopeloa. Anyway, that was a lot, and it was only the first part of the song. We didn't even dive into the puni lile lile part. But yeah, I'm super
we
down
need to hear all of that.
Yeah,
definitely, we need to hear all of that.
mahalo.
Mahalo nui.
Yeah, and I hope that people kind of think through that and remember that, you know, when they listen to the mele, like, don't just be blind and be deaf to the actual words. Ku'e, 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 ahiki ke aloha ʻāina hopeloa. With every single ku'e and every single aloha ʻāina hopeloa, we ought to remember that this is our life. Like, this is the wealth of our life. Like, remembering our names, like our Hawaii names, and remembering how to say them, and remembering how to kind of like embody our Hawaii with ourselves and our spirits, and our, like, every single time this song will play, the mana'o nui is that we recall that and remember that, so that we don't forget that we are special people. But anyway, I'm super down to go into Mele no ka puni lile lile line by line. Shu, if you're down.
Super down. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so this version and then also a sort of translation can be found in nupepahawaii.com. We have a link there, and then I'll have it pop up right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can also just Google Mele no ka puni lile lile. It's the nupepa.com version. That's the version I saw. That's the version that the kane that I used to like shared. That I saw, and then I was like, oh, I gotta this Mele is just talking to me. So yep. That's the one. Yeah.
It's using you and channeling your energy to get to the nui po'e.
Guarantee. Yeah. Yeah. Mahalo.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we have eia kalono ua hiki mai I lavea mai e ka makani kona.
Yeah, eia e kalono ua hiki mai I lavea mai e ka makani kona. Do you have an on that?
I think it's a proper introduction. This is the news. It has arrived here. So because it's the context of a newspaper, yeah, this is preparing the reader to understand what he's about to read, or she is about to read, as the news that has just came. And we see the very, very poetic saying of it being brought, yeah, I lavea mai e ka makani kona. Yeah, so it was brought by the westerly winds.
Yeah, and I was talking to Kupuna about those winds, and they said that those winds are very dry and mucky. So I think that Kupuna's mana'o on this part of the song was that it was like icky, sticky news. Like, it wasn't like pleasant, easy breezy, beautiful kind. So happy to. It was like hot and mucky and like kind news, you know. I lavea mai e ka makani kona. And that just says a lot too about Olelo Makua, like kokako olelo makuhine and how beautifully, like they never say, oh, look at this junk, yucky stuff that's going on over here. They said, here is the news that was brought by the Kona winds, like, period. You know?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's that. Ike na hana, is that the next line?
Yep.
Nanani. Ike na hana poholalo ana muhe o kaina. Mana'o paha?
So I see ike na hana poholalo. Yeah, so it has been brought to our attention, yeah, so that we know of these hana poholalo, yeah, these acting underhandedly, these doings underhandedly of these muhe'e of the land that we live on.
Yeah. Kako'o. Do you know what? I mean, because I don't know, I think everybody kind of knows this or might kind of get the idea, but I'm not I didn't go to higher level education for Olelo things. I never ever went to Kahakaula and studied under anything. So like my Olelo is not there. So sometimes, like for example, you know the balls of your feet, like the if you think about the very bottom of your feet, like all the part that gets dirty when you walk. What is that? What is the word for that?
Ooh, I can see it as poholalo.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking too. You know, even though I never read that in a dictionary, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
And in hula, I always just learned that it's super nails to face the bottoms of your feet to another person. Like to sit with your feet out in front of you and then like you're exposing the bottom of your feet to the kanaka in front of you. Like that's just super rude. Like you don't do that, you know? So it's like who raised you, kind? Like why do you not know that when you do that? So hana pohalalo to me is like just this disgustingly gross, like why inappropriate pono ole, like it's not just deceitful and underhanded, but it's like ridiculously gross. Not gross like icky, but gross like inappropriate, and like you just don't do that. You know, ana muhe o kaina. Do you have manao and muhe like I don't know, previous manao or anything?
I think kind of what we talk about muhe'e, we know that it's able to change directions at whim. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
I kalamai
go
kalamai
ahead.
no
No,
hold
you had it. You had it.
yeah, everybody I talk to, every different person I talk to about muhe tell me something different. But the New Peppa article online was talking about how like muhe as a cuttlefish, squid kind of like creature, when it propels itself forward, it also has to go back. So it talks about like the two-faced nature of so what, like for Hawaii's, when we call people muhe, it's like they're two-faced, you know. Another person told me that muhe they dance in the nighttime. They kind of like, instead of swimming around, they just kind of dance. They do this dance in the nighttime that they don't do in the daytime. So it's like they do stuff in the dark that they don't necessarily do in the light. And that was the kind of like the kauna of what the muhe was to that uncle I was talking to. And somebody else talked to me about like muhe being a verb, like kamuhe'e o ka'aina, like the slipping away of aina just right beneath our feet at the deeds of the wicked people, or the underhanded deeds of the people who are very like poholalo, just deceitful, you know. But that line, all in all, talks about iko manao, in my opinion on this line. Ike iai na hana poholalo ana muhe'e o ka'aina. It's like now everybody can see the wicked deeds of the deceitful people of this land. So in my mind, it's not only talking about foreigners who do foreign, and this is kind of like a plot twist kind for me, like, oh, is this a leg, like one of those special. It's not only talking about foreign people, but it's talking about Hawaii people who kamuhe o ka'aina, like Hawaii people who are selling, Hawaii people who are agreeing to kind of follow along in this way. So that's where it gets kind of deep, you know, for me. But anyway, yeah, ike'iai na hana poholalo ana muhe e o ka ʻāina. And then there's I pauku'd it off to the next pauku, yeah.
Mhm.
The next part of the mele goes puni vale.
Mhm.
Puni vale I ka mali leo pana'i. Mana opa.
I'm thinking like to be enraptured with what do they say? Fawning after the sweet talk of reciprocity. I do like that.
No, whoever did this unuhi is pretty right on.
Yeah,
I
I
was
like
like,
it.
wow, okay. Yeah,
Kako'o.
me too, me too. Yeah, puni vale I ka mali leo pana'i. Puni vale, like puni, I think of ho'opuni puni. I
Mhm.
think of like, I don't know, maybe aupuni. You know, like what kind of manao in Makahiʻo Mele do you think of when you hear the word puni?
Yeah, I'm thinking like puni vale to be some sort of gullible, uh,
Mm,
to maybe be naive. Think about puni as in rapture, but with that vale, it's like not really being able to think on your own as you're being in that state of puni. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that
Huh.
makes sense. I think about like in my personal life, there was this time, and like this is super like personal and real, but like there was this time where I needed like physical affection. Like I needed it. Like so I would go out and do all kind of things, get super buzzed, and then wake up with like I don't know who. But if you think about that need, like you gotta have it. There's nothing else that you can kind of see. Like there's no logic, there's no anything that you can kind of see except the thing that you need. So that might translate to like addiction of some sort, punivale, like you're totally focused on, enraptured by, like committed to, like overcome by, you know, puni vale I ka mali leo pana I mali, like ho'o mali mali. You know, like people are just addicted to this like sweet, like so in the translation it said like sweet talk of reciprocity.
Mhm.
Mali leo pana I think of just like this narrative. People
Mhm.
are addicted, like they have this narrative of like this happy life. It's gonna be so happy when we just signed our allegiance over to America. We're gonna have all these materialistic things, like puni vale, like just coveting, listening to the narrative and just coveting that, you know. Um, what's your manao on that part?
No, yeah, I love narrative as that because I'm seeing Mali as like a, like you said, Ho'o Mali Mali, yeah, to be they're baiting it, they're throwing it in front of you so that you're kind of enraptured, yeah, and that's what that Puni Vale is saying. So I kako onui that that buying into that narrative, and then we have the next line saying Kuʻulei keola me ka ʻohana, so you know, buying in
Yeah,
even
yeah.
further there, you know.
No, fully. And it's like the Mali and Malihini too. You
Mhm.
know, like just that idea of like, is it real though? Like is it here? Is it present though? You know, ku ai keola meka uhane. Like we get so enraptured in the things that in the narrative, like in the story that we hear, that we ku ai keola meka uhane. Like we buy into that with our whole body and our whole soul. So like this is very related to the political situation that was happening in 1893, but it's also related to our personal lives. Like when we there's this kane that we just feel like we really need. We're just listening to the narrative. Like we sell our whole bodies literally for a lot of vahine. We sell our bodies and we sell our souls, our spirits for this narrative that is not actually really oya i'o. You know, it happens with substances. It happens in relationships. It happens with like money. You know, like all kinds of things. So this mele is just super applicable in all kinds of vow. I don't know. I get kind of nuts about it because like that's how relevant it's been for 127 years. You know, this guy wasn't playing around. Whole book of this mele.
Right,
But
relevant
anyway,
then,
yeah.
still relevant these days. I kind
Still
of also do
relevant.
see ku'ai i keola me ka ʻohana. It's like a shift in consciousness of what's important. And the fact that you can
Mm,
kuʻulei, like there's no term in Hawaiian for land ownership, but all of a sudden, you know, we need to conceptualize that land ʻāina
oh yeah.
honua can be bought. And so you know, kind of like buying your life and buying your soul even. And I think that's another mana'o that can be thought of in this kuʻai I keola a me ka ʻohana.
Yeah, kako.
Yeah.
Because it's not buying land. You're not buying land. You're not selling land.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling life.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling soul. You're selling like mana. Like there's no, it's not just the dirt under your feet. It's like the mana that's invested therein. Yeah, kako. Kako opia. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is just multifaceted, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah,
important
yeah, yeah.
to think about why we don't just straight translate mele, because if we look at the beneath here, it says selling away life and soul. All of our conversation for the past 2-3 minutes wouldn't have been captured in, you know, 5 words. So I think
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people aren't completely okay with translating a mele and saying, here, this is the translation for this song. And so having these makavalu, yeah, this being able to see the different kauna, the different ambiguity in this is very important as our growth of us as Kanaka. So mahalo nui. Aye.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Mahalo ya oi. Kako opiha, kako opiha. Okay, so we're ma'anei I think we're like a little bit. Yeah. Ku ai ke ola me ka. Yeah, ua pa'a nā maka I ke kala I ka mea lile lile a ka haole. I don't know if people can see the album cover, but there's like this line is included in the album cover. Yeah, right there. Pa'a nā maka I ke kala means the eyes are stuck on the money. The eyes are stuck on the money, like affixed. Like it's just people, like eyes on the money, but nothing else. You know that saying? They're talking about like a lot of times when people say eyes on the money, like they're talking about like accumulating wealth, in the like in the context of like of capitalism. So if I think about like the narrative of white men when they're like, I gotta have this job, I gotta like stocks and I gotta all these things and I have to, like they lose track of their families. Like you see that in movies a lot of times. Like they get so eyes on the money. Pa'a na maka ike kala. That all of the things start fading away and getting really distant, and family becomes second, and everything but money becomes second. And so this is a super powerful and relevant line too. And I really mahalo Malia Hellman for doing our album cover. She did this super genius thing, which was in the monocle of the muhe'e. You can see pa'a na maka ike kala, like because the I goes in the monocle, right? So she has this little part here that says pa'a na maka ike kala, and it's just like super super genius. And you see the muhe'e with the money and the aloha things just right there. Is super genius. I mahalo her, but ika mea lile lile a kaole. That is like, so our eyes are affixed on the money and the shiny things of the foreigner. That's what that mana'o is. I always love to makavalu that and apply it to what's important to me at the time. Right now, I think I want to try to just kind of stick to this narrative of the ala, like the political part of this mele. Mostly it's talking about the overthrow and about how people, so like the provisional government, which was Sanford B. Dole and Lauren Thurston and all those guys, like they had just their eyes, they didn't care about Liliu or any of the thousands of Kanaka on our ʻāina Aloha. They were just like money. Pa'ana maka ike kala I ka mea lile lile a ka haole. When we're looking at other contexts, that might be like shiny things, you know, shiny things like money, but sometimes those shiny things are outward validation. Like our we have to get that outward validation. Other people have to like us, or my kane has to believe that I'm the only bestest, most amazing thing in his life. Nothing can be more important. Like anything that is like super shiny that wraps up our attention on anything is that mea lile lile akahaole. Like anything that takes us far away from our oya i'o as people, that's that puni lile lile, mea lile lile akahaole, you know. It's just about, to me, it's about making sure that our eyes are where we need it to be in pono spaces, you know, that we're not ohia over there. But yeah, kalamai manao pa.
No, my kai. Yeah, I like hearing your manao for sure.
I'm invested into this mele with all my whole body.
Oh yeah.
Like literally. Yeah, investment. Yeah, fully. Channeling things. But okay, and then we have try to go up a little bit. Wali. Yeah,
Yes,
is that the
we're gonna have a bonus
okay?
verse.
So we skipped. Yeah. We skipped that one verse. We're thinking about doing an extended version, but just really quickly, this verse that's not in the mele, it says, "Walike me yuda kumakaya." It's a biblical reference to the mo'olelo about Judas or Judith. I think it's Judas.
Judas, yeah.
The traitor, Judas the traitor. Ho'omaya va'eva ikonahaku. Like he forsook his own Lord. And I mahalo the New Peppa article for translating this like this. But so at this time, Liliu was very like biblical. She was a very like Christian oriented vahine, but also it was really the aloha o kahaku for her. So anyway, this is a biblical reference to the story of a person who betrayed his own Lord. So just like people, just like Judas did that in the story, people are betraying our own people, betraying our own ʻāina. Aloha ole ikona one hanao. And see, like this is what I like. This is the part I get super excited. Like this is the part where I feel like no, we're not bashing. We're not only bashing the provisional government. Like I feel like Maluihi Kolohe Kahuanene Akapoyavalani was specifically talking about Hawaii's, like us who sell, us who give, us who buy into that narrative. Not because we already know, you know, that 1 month already passed since January. There's already plenty of articles in the newspaper about how junk and how irritating and how irritated people are with the provisional government and like the whole like Lili'u deposing and millet. Like there's a lot of melis, but this is specifically about us forsaking our own and how important it is for us to stay grounded and stay rooted in what's important. Aloha ole kona one hanau a ipuka mai ai ke we have no like this person has no aloha for his own birth sands, and it's evident in this time and in this day today, you know. Also, some people say that the provisional government people were born in Hawaii and they just were like fair because their parents were fair. So it's like, what? How can you do this to your own queen? But it's really applicable for me because it holds me accountable when I want to point fingers at other people for doing other things. You know, like no, we're talking about this right here. How do we stay accountable to aloha, ʻāina, and ʻāina aloha? But anyway, so that's my manao on that poku that we just saved for the extended version.
Yep. I was definitely getting muhe'e vibes too from there with that aloha ole ikona one hanau. Just that sentence alone, aloha ole ikona one hanau. It's like that equals that, but it's like it muhe'e.
Oh, it's deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the one hanau, like people don't realize what one hanau is. It's not just like the sands that you walked on when you're small. No, like the sands that you were born on. Like when you first came out of the womb and the blood and the ieve and all of the creation merged and like seeped into the sand, those are your one hanau. You know, and maybe we don't get birthed on the sands anymore. But the thing is that it's like your own beloved ʻohana, like to forsake your own flesh, like your own mother. Like that's the depth of the ʻonehanau. So it's like just these words are just like, oh, who is this kupuna? Where's your mo'opuna? Good night.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's definitely the opposite of an aloha ʻāina too. Yeah, we have aloha ʻāina as patriotism, but it's like also to fight for where you're born and your one hanau. It, you know, like blood quantum is nothing. it is your
Yeah.
mole, it is your identity, and how you portray that identity. You know, the language aspect, the mannerisms, the
Yeah.
ancestral connections, the spiritual vibes. So, yeah. Also, when I hear that, I think of like he's like he came out of he's a come of this ʻāina, but he's not in Aloha ʻāina, you know, and that's a
How can rubber
how
band?
can
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, Mika'i.
I'm just not excited.
Yeah.
What? You're
I hope you
just
folks are
screaming
excited
out
too, the
there.
people listening.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. But yes, and then there's this poku hopeloa that is ikeai kalahe mea mehana hanuai kea o ka ʻāina haʻina ia mai ana kapuana no ka poʻe puni wale i ka lilelile. And that's like, to me, that poku is super rewarding. It's super reassuring and it's super safe. Like it makes me feel held as a like quote unquote frontliner aloha ʻāina person. Do you have manao on this poku?
Get it.
Okay. Like, because I'm just going. That's why.
Get it.
So like for me, like frontlining is like a cool term, and it feels like, I guess it's cool nowadays. So it feels cool that people are like, oh, like sis, Mona Kill, like yeah, I got you. Like I see you up there all the time. It's cool for the ego, you know, for sure. But I think like when I think about frontlining, I'm thinking about the people who are struggling with substance abuse right now. I'm thinking about the people who are struggling with alcoholism, who are struggling with like trigger alert kind of things, but struggling with suicidal ideation, struggling with sexual abuse, and dealing with all kinds of like kona wins, icky, yucky kind things. Like all of our kanaka who are experiencing hunger and houselessness and like mental illness because of the cognitive dissonance that comes with losing our ʻāina aloha. Literally in our lifetime, our land was sold by ʻohana. Like all of the hardship that comes with being Kanaka and also being disconnected from land, those are the front lines. Those are the front lines. So I'm not just talking about like the Malias and the Jamaicas who chained themselves to the cattle guard. Absolutely, we're talking about that activism and aloha ʻāina in that way. Absolutely, we're talking about the Uncle Walter Riddies of Kanaloa. We're talking about the George Helms. We're talking about the Haunani Trasks. We're talking about the Uncle Bumpies. Like we're talking about all of that. No, but this song is also talking about us, all of us who are at home with our keiki, doing the best to get by, and like survival is the front lines a lot of times for Hawaii people. So in all of that, because that's what this whole first tree poku was talking about. Because this is just, I don't know if anybody really notices or is aware, but where we're at as a lahui today in the deficits that we sit in, like politically and also economically and also in all ways, the health disparities that we live in, that's a result of the first three poku of this mele. Like that's a result of the occupation of our mind and the occupation of our ʻāina aloha. That's a result. So this last poku offers a lot of hope. It says, Ike ai kala he mea mehana. Like seen is the sun, a thing of warmth. That might seem like really simple, but if all of us in the hardest times of our life was really just able to channel in and hone into the mana of the sun as a thing of warmth, as a thing of sustenance, and the mana of that, not akua like God, I guess, but I guess too, if like for Christian people who understand God, like to really channel into your akua. That's kind of what that line means to me. Ike kalahe mea mehana, like seen is the sun, a thing of warmth, connecting to actual ʻāina. We don't like, not even if we don't own ʻāina, like connecting to the mana of the sun rays as it's coming down. I'm not talking about the idea of the sun. I'm talking about the actual sun itself. You know, like dipping and like digging our feet into whatever soil we can find. Like that action of connecting physically and seriously to ʻāina. Hanuai ikea o ka ʻāina is the second line. To breathe in the liberty and the freedom of that land. It's like an actual biological cellular communication between the self and ʻāina. Like for that to happen, like that's not something that anybody can take away from us. The way that we experience the sun is not ever something that anybody could rob from us as Kanaka. The way that we experience the wind when it just brushes our face and we breathe deeply, that is not something anybody can ever take. So this last poku is helping me to realize that I don't like I don't need other people to like I'm safe. Like I'm safe in my skin as a Hawaii. Like this last poku reminds me of that. And it reminds me to focus in on the good things of this life that is my ability to connect to sun and wind and rain and dirt and grass and ocean and sand. Like the ability to connect to that is the medicine. And that's what it says in the last poku. Hanuai ikea o kaina, to really breathe in, like literally with the fresh soil, just breathe in the soil of the hanuai ikea o kaina. Haina ia mai ana kapuana no ka poe puni vale I ka lile lile. Like just you worry about you. Like you focus in on being okay. You focus in on tuning into Aina, and the story will be told about people who don't. And the story will be told about people who covet shiny things. And the story will be told about people who cannot stay present and people who covet the narrative and the narratives that are foreign to this Aina Aloha. Told will be the tale, but like don't let it be you kind of thing. You know, that's the manaonui of that line and that poku. And then maluihi koloe ikahuanene akapoe walani is the mehaku. But yeah, that's my manao about that mele, you know. Manao paha.
Nani loa, mahalo. I love
I just gotta breathe.
manao kako. I like that whole, and kako onui, that whole front line, and how the the activists, the people that are active in the movement are important, but it is also the people at home and the different facets of our how
I
kanaka
know.
are, and
Yeah.
the struggles everywhere. That's a big part of it, and getting through that. So I definitely mahalo nui that manao. We don't always think on those levels, and whatever it might be for us personally, like we might not connect to it that way, but I like that it's connected in therein. So mahalo nui.
Yeah, mahalo ya oi. That's
Mhm.
the manao nui of the song to me. Also the idea of makavalu is really important. As we makavalu or try to understand the kana of any mele. Like just to be open to all the different multifaceted like lines, fibers of any mo'olelo. Like it's not going to only be relevant to politics. Sure, that's one point of relevance, but for the Hawaii, we know that like anything and everything is applicable to so much more. You know, whether it's a song, a poem, a mele, a situation, an experience, words, anything. So just the manawa nui to makavalu, I really mahalo that. But yeah, mahalo for having me over here. I don't know how far off we got from your olokea.
Oh no, this is
Like,
Makai. This is exactly what I wanted.
yeah,
So mahalo nui. Yeah,
cool,
all these
mahalo.
mana'o are definitely necessary. We know that just by listening to the song, that's a certain level of understanding and literacy. Seeing a translation is a certain level, but I think exploring every single huna, every single little bit of this mele is like very important for all mele, not only this one, but and
Yeah,
through the eyes of the hakumele is even further. Yeah, the eyes of the composer. You're always gonna see something else, and you're always gonna have the most diverse, understanding of the mele. So it's important to hear your leo at times and kind of reconnect those dots to what people are hearing and they're imagining and they're connecting to. And definitely by their accounts also, when they tell you, oh, I got this vibe, then you're like thrown into the next level because you already have this foundational understanding and then all of these other ones. So this is very important, and mahalo nui is not even off at all from the olokea. So maikai.
cool.
Yeah. So yeah, mahalo for that section when we examined the lyrics and we had a rough translation with some hidden meanings. And so our last section is kapa'ina. So after we open our imu, we grind and we ingest of the nutrients of the food that was prepared. So I don't know. I just had a couple of questions. So what audience group and what listeners were intended for when you made this, and why is it important that this is released for them?
Hmm, that's a good question. When it was like 2017 when I put this meta together, but um, it was really intentional that you and I both ho'opuka this, like exported it out to the lehu lehu in a means that was palatable to them slash us. I'm super grateful, and the timing is just from 2017 till now. The timing is just really, really important. Or just koi koi. Like I use that word a few times so far, and just for the people who don't know what koi koi is like an adze. Like it's a hard rock to that's used to cut things. Like I didn't even know what an adze was. It's kind of like a tuck tuck tuck. Like so you have something and you tuck tuck and then you cut it. You know, it's that. Um, Also koi and oki, just like the similar. Just noticed that. But anyway, something that is koi, like if you think about how important that ability to cut things was to civilization, like that's what koi is. Really, really important. Also, koi are like hard. Like it's very solid. It's a necessity. It's a solid thing. And it's indispensable to the growth of a whole civilization. Like that's what a koi is. That's what koi is. So when I say that the timing was koi, I'm saying that it was like really, really a big deal. Um, so in 2019, a lot of people know that the Mauna Kea stance happened, and there was a lot of people that were holding space up there. Kupuna were arrested. It was like a really big movement, and that sparked the need for this aha. And this aha, or like this coming together of all kinds of people all together to pule, like that was a really, really big thing. And those pule, those prayers that were laid at the foot of the Mauna sparked this catalyst of change within a lot of people, like inside. A lot of people, like these pule, eho mai na o makua, all of the pule that were done caused people to really wake up. Ho'a ia kamauli. Like people's identities as Hawaii's were lit again, were full again, were warm again. And those are the people that this mele is for. Because there's not going to be a Mauna Kea movement every week, every day, every year. But it's important for us to keep that mauli lit inside of us, that commitment and that truth of understanding ourselves as Kanaka, that commitment and that truth of understanding ourselves, even if we're not Kanaka, as water protectors, as land protectors, as people who have intimate relationships to land and sustenance and food and growth, like for those people. Those are the intended audiences. Like, yes, absolutely Hawaii's like me and you. Yes, absolutely people who olelo. Yes, absolutely the nakas in the homestead who always jam your music and Kaikena's music. Yes, absolutely all of them, all of us. But especially for the people who aren't just learning about their Maoli, like people who are just learning about language and about who we are as Kanaka and who they are as Kanaka, people who are learning to wrap their lips around the word Hawaii, and people who are learning to wrap their lips around their own names. Like this mele is for them slash us, um, to remind us how important it is to stay lit and keep that fire lit. You know, so that's kind of the intended audience. I don't know what was the second part of the question, but
No, yeah, that was Makai. Yeah, it was. You talked about koi and why this has to go out, so that you definitely hit it on the money.
it's scary to think about what will happen if we don't keep that lit.
Mhm.
Like if we let that part of our mauli die out and like we just start to re-assimilate into like colonial patterns of thinking and being,
Mhm.
that's super scary for me. Like people understand that like don't be afraid of the work, be afraid of the um the laziness and the consequence of not doing the work. Like it was scary to put together this whole medley of songs. Like it's always scary to export any music or any work. I know but it's even more scary to think about the consequences of not putting out this music. And that's also really part of the koʻi about why. Like I know that there's a lot of people who are scared to like step into spaces of Hawaiian language because they're like, I'm gonna make a mistake, or I don't know what to do. I'm not even Hawaiian. Like I wasn't even raised in Hawaii, and even though I'm only like 1% Hawaiian, like no, no. Like no, we have to reignite and reclaim and belong to us. Like that's the mana of where I was hoping to go with this mele and why it's so koʻi. But mahalo for the question.
No, yeah, Makahiʻo Mele. Yeah, so again, yeah, that's the ʻāina. That's what people are. That's the audience involved and where they're gonna take this, and of course I like that it was the people down in the homesteads jamming the jams. So it's definitely for you and kako. Yeah, that's what it was about. ʻāina. Yeah, we see ʻāina as party, but I mean it's also to enjoy yourself and bask in the excellence of your ʻohana and the presence. So yeah, mahalo nui. Ikailoa, do we have any more thoughts we'd like to give out? Any shout outs?
I really want to mahalo Kuʻulei again for putting together that pule and that mele and all of the mana that went into that, and her ola in general. I want to thank Malia for all the things that she is and does in her kulana Aloha ʻāina, but also for designing our album. I mean, our cover. What is it called? Just cover art.
Yeah, cover art. Yeah.
Mahalo ya oi. Makahana nui of doing everything except singing. Like that was just super all you. It's always super. I always follow for the question of like any shout outs last month or whatever. I come from John. Like it's important for me to say that kupuna who like really catalyzed all this ike for me. When I do na'o makua, which is the pule for people who don't know, like the pule that hones in the help when I need it. Those kupuna are why I'm here today. Like not just here in this conversation, not just here as an artist or but here in the world. Like they saved me. Those kupuna that I said, these are their names. John Henry Wise is one of those kupuna. Kalani Nui Kauko'olua Ole is one of those kupuna. She's the wife of Kamehameha Ekahi that like bore me. So Kamehameha Pai'ea and Kalani Nui Kauko'olua Ole, that's his 10th wahine in his line. That's his 10th wahine that he was with. And he's my 10th kupuna. So like knowing that, like that is the mana that I call upon every single time I say na'o makua, like those kupuna. And I think like it's really important just to honor that, to honor that mana, for all of us to honor the mana of our kupuna. I also wanted to mahalo your kupuna that is Nahue Vai of Maui, yeah?
Maui, Hawaii, yeah.
All over.
Yeah. From, it also goes back to Kawoa Nui Mahi and then Alapa'i Nui. So kind of on another side of the Kamehameha. Yeah, Kamehameha has been Anakala in a way, no, but still of the same ʻohana, still of the same bloodline.
Yeah, fully. Like the success of our work really, really, really has to do with our kupuna and how we relate to them and remember them in our spaces of intimate relation to ʻāina. So I just mahalo you and all of the kupuna that you come from. And I also just wanted to say to people, like, when it comes to this mele, like, super give them. Like, give them, like, don't be hila. Like, people will feel stuff. That's why in this mele and in that video that I posted, the teaser video, people are gonna feel stuff. Like, don't cap that, like, feel it. And then let it grow and evolve into you understanding your kuleana as a Hawaii. Like, don't cap that. Don't cap those emotions. Don't cap those feelings. Like, let it go, let it grow. And then look and search and find your kuleana. and your kulana, your role in this motion to reclaim Hawaii. Like that's the mana'onui of this song, and I really hope that people get that, you know. But jam them, give them, you know, like that. That's all.
Yeah, throw
Yeah.
those words in the air, because once you say it, once it's said, once it's playing on the radio, it brings ola. So everywhere you take this
Yeah,
melody,
ola.
you have that ola.
Absolutely. Yeah, mahalo ya oi. Oia
Okay.
wale. Oia i hola.
Mahalo nui. Kia hui
Yeah,
ana.
mahalo.
Mahalo ya oko e ka lahui e ka lehu ka oko mau. Kako ana mai a maua i ke pukana no oko no kako no hoi. Mahui ho kako.
Aloha.